like, in the past, all I did was overfunction. Like the idea that I kind of the like stay in your lane. Like I didn't have a lane. My lane was like dealing with everyone else's stuff.
Hi, and welcome to the Louder Than Silence podcast with your host, CG Wagner. This episode is part of the series From Survivor to Leader, where the other staff members and I are having discussions about all things LTS and what it means to be leading the work in long term care for survivors of sexual violence. It's a mix of our own personal experiences, the work our team does, and how those two things impact each other. Our hope is that survivors feel seen and validated, and supporters gain a deeper understanding of what this healing process looks like. Our episode today is addressing overfunctioning. For those of you who have never heard the term overfunctioning, it means when we take on responsibilities for or on behalf of another person who is able to do it for themselves. It can be practical, like doing a disproportionate amount of unpaid household work or childcare. It can be emotional, like creating the emotional space for someone to process because they don't regulate their emotions themselves. It can be relational, manifesting as an attempt to create repair in relationships on someone else's behalf. There are a lot of other ways that a person can overfunction, but these are just a few categories that we commonly see and experience. Overfunctioning often manifests with survivors of sexual violence because it can be a form of coping mechanism based on the idea that managing everything perfectly will help us feel safe and stable. Or it can be a learned behavior from a controlling and abusive relationship that teaches us that we are responsible for another person's well being. So, this is the root concept of what we are discussing today, how we have overfunctioned in the past, and what we are doing to undo that automatic behavior in our lives. With me today, I have our social media and marketing manager, Christy, our development manager, Brittany, and our program manager, Joe. So, ladies, of course, as always, thank you. So, jumping right in, how does overfunctioning manifest in your life currently, or how is it manifested in the past?
Um, so for me, overfunctioning, I'll go past first because I'm like, how does it not? For me, in the past, the way it looks is like I'm the one that gets the thing done. And that was propped up by the environment that I was in, as far as like roles and what my roles were and what I was called to do in that space. Um, I think that there's an ADHD component to this. It's something that I'm actually looking further into because in that overfunctioning, it creates a sense of safety. Um, and um, right, like have you everyone seen the meme, right? Like where the person's like walking and they're all like calm and like everything's exploding in the background and they're the ones that gets the thing done. I think that there's like a lot of I say core movement. I think that there's a lot of what would be the word? It's like a Venn diagram, and it fits into several different things. Um, so for me in the past, it was taking on the responsibility of doing all the things. But the I don't want to say the lie I would tell myself, but the thing that I would tell myself is like, oh, well, if I have a particular way I want this done, then I will be the one to do it. And then that prevents the other people from having to do it at all, right? And so it can be very controlling, but you don't realize it's being controlling. Okay, so present day, and it probably manifests like even crazier, but present day, it was through a conversation with CG. I think I don't know what we were talking about, but we were talking about something one day, and she had mentioned over functioning for another person. And I was like, whoa. And so then I began to take stock of like, how do I overfunction for people or other people? And so now that I have an awareness of it, it looks more like I will ask myself when I find, like, so I was able to tie it to like how it felt in my body. How does this feel in my body when I find that I'm doing this behavior? Oh, okay. So as I notice that, um, when I feel that way, I'm going to question it. What is going on right now? Do I need to do this? Do I not need to do this? Is this something that they don't know how to do? Because, like, I've got kids, right? So sometimes, and that's where I think it gets murky, especially in the past, is like you do have to do a level of functioning for the humans that are in the household. And also, there comes a time when your youngest is 11 that maybe not so much anymore. Anyhow, so now it looks very, very different. I have more of an awareness. It's even in like a clinical setting, I find myself like one of the things that CG said was, um, sometimes we can overfunction to a part where like I'm giving everybody all the resources and they haven't even asked for them. Because in my head, I'm like, oh, if they only knew, I'll give them this whole big list that they didn't even ask me for, and I'll do all the work for this. And then lo and behold, they'll be like, it'll help them. Well, in reality, if they haven't asked for it, like they're not going to use it. I'm just going to do the work and then I'm going to get frustrated. Right. And it's going to replay a cycle. So now it looks a lot different. I have more of an awareness of it. I will ask myself, like, is this something this person's capable of doing, i.e., a partner? That's usually when I'm finding myself doing it. You know, if I walk in the house and someone's like, oh, we don't have any milk. Are you able to go to the store and get it? And I don't mean to be like a Jack, I was going to say a bad word, but like a Jackie Jack, a donkey about it. But like, I just got home from work. So like, are we capable of going to the store and grabbing that? We are. It doesn't have to wait for mom. I do a lot of, so people who have kids, I do a lot of, hey, you have a dad also. And you can ask dad that question also. Not in a jerky way, but just in a, you have two parents here and I'm like functioning for five parents. And no wonder why my nervous system is wonky, And if someone asks me a question, I get overwhelmed because I'm trying to answer all the questions all the time. So, looks very different now. Thank you, CG, for that awareness and that word. And then it like highlighted this whole like history of, oh, I mean, we have a society that's kind of set up on women over functioning for their partner in the household. I could go on. Anyways, I won't.
Yeah, I feel like we could talk about this all day long. Um, let's see, how did it manifest in my life? And I'm going to start in the past as well. It's interesting because even like on the Enneagram, I am a two. I'm a helper. And I perceived my actions in the past as being helpful when I was really trying to fix everybody, which is not helpful at all, especially if people haven't asked for help. Um, so there was that component, and I also was I had lots of unhealthy relationships for most of my life until recently. And so the complexity, the layering of the expectation and with the a sense of control, I was in like working overtime, over functioning, over functioning all the time. Um, I would offer solutions to people, which would lead me to doing the solutions, like being the answer, like giving and being the answer, which would lead to exhaustion. I would find attorneys. I would research and find attorneys for friends going through divorce. I would find therapists for family members. I was fixing everybody's lives for them, whether they wanted it or not, because I thought I had to, that this was my role. I took care of everybody's lives. I was mama to everyone. And even saying that feels wrong because as a mom, part of our role, I understand now, is to empower my kids. Like Christy, you were saying, you get to a certain age, yes, you have to do these things as they're little and need guidance and to be taught, but then they're becoming and they're growing, and it's stepping away, letting them fail, letting them not be perfect. Um, but growing up and in past relationship, like the buck stopped with me. I got the things done. If I didn't do it, they wouldn't happen. And then I would get teased for being too controlling by the people I was doing things for who wouldn't do it if I didn't do it. That might have sounded a little confusing, but hopefully you're following. See, you are. Um, so it's an interesting thing to observe. I have done a lot of work on not over functioning. It still happens. I can easily fall back into it. I'll yes ma'am, yes sir, and get it done. Um, but I can now notice when I'm doing it and pause and step back to look at why. Is it necessary? Do they need the help, or are they completely capable on their own? But it has definitely been a process.
Yeah, I also um I think it's funny for me when I think of now versus like, oh, how did it in the past? And I'm like, in the past, all I did was overfunction. Like the idea that I kind of the like stay in your lane. Like I didn't have a lane. My lane was like dealing with everyone else's stuff. Um, and I mean like from childhood. In my book I have this line that like I became a mom when I was 3 and my sister joined the world because like that's so yes, since I can remember, I was not in my lane as a child. I was over functioning for everyone else. And then, that was my relationships and my primary relationship, the way that my family, as in with my kids and my and now ex-husband, like that's how I functioned there too. I took care of everyone and all things. Um, in a way, I was God, um, which could sound great. But also, because then you feel like you, like kind of what Christy said, you feel like you have control, right? Like if you are involved in every aspect of your world, you are God in that world, except for I am very human with human capacity, um, which is not how I lived. I lived like I was Superwoman. And of course, I feel like people put that as a badge of honor. Like I cannot tell you how many times I was called Supermom, um, but I don't have superpowers. And my body would try to remind me that I didn't have superpowers. And so I would go through this cycle of like over functioning. And I like Christy, I like how you said like feeling it in your body. Um, my over functioning because of the way I am. My overfunctioning would come to me like disassociating because my body would be exhausted. So instead of connecting with that exhaustion and anxiety that was constant in my body, I just wasn't in my body. I just lived up in logic with a task list of all the shit I had to get done. And all I was doing was marking things off and checking on every other human that was in my sphere. And if they got their lists checked off, um, so in a lot of ways, I wouldn't have known how it felt in my body because I wasn't even there. Um, but now that I actually try to stay in this body and live in this body, it is a little bit easier to feel that like level of anxiety of taking on other people's weight. Um, and that mine will come up in like these circle thinkings where I'll like start thinking about what that person like either what they're thinking, what they're doing, how their actions will affect the world around me, and like I just like hyper fixate on other people's stuff. Um, so that's something that still happens, but I can at least see it and address it. Um, so now how does that look in my life now? Now that I live in my body and try to have boundaries, or at least try to live in my body and try to have boundaries. um, a lot of it now is like holding boundaries with people. Um, and that can be like cutting people off who don't understand that, like, no, you, like, this is your lane, this is my lane. I'm not talking about this drama with this person or whatever that you have going over here. This is my lane. You can come and talk to me about whatever is in this lane. um and so yeah, just like holding boundaries, letting people know what you will and won't tolerate or deal with for them. um and as Chrissy said, it can get murky because I do have kids. And I do have a co parent who is used to 16 years of me over functioning and being the primary parent, being the, in a lot of ways, I mean, I was a stay at home mom. So I was the parent, and he was the provider financially. And now that that's not the case, there's like a whole list of things that I used to do, that he's capable of doing, but not used to doing, right? Like just the practicality of like, if you overfunction for someone, that's what they now expect, is that you're going to do this thing. And so to start to even up the scales, there is that like, okay, this is now yours. um and sometimes there can be this, like, in a way, a need of like teaching, like, okay, hey, remember that that is now your responsibility. Did you do the responsibility? And that can still feel like over functioning because you're still reminding them that like this is now their function. um and at some point you should stop having to remind them, but like there is a level of like progressively, and just like with kids, right? It's a little weird when it's an adult and you're like, okay, no, I just told you, like, do the thing. But in a lot of ways it is trained. And so just like a child, like when you're teaching your kid how to do their own laundry, you don't just like tell them once and then expect like now they're fold and put away and do all the things. Like it is a like, hey, remember, I'm not doing this for you anymore. Do you need me to show you again? Do you remember how to do it? Hey, you did this wrong. Can I show you? You know, like kind of a little bit of hand holding. But the goal is to eventually you're going to be walking on your own, bud. Eventually you're going to figure this out. And so I feel like in my life right now, I'm kind of in that stage. A lot of like reminders versus actually doing, and learning when, kind of to what you said, Brittany, learning when to like let them fail and be like, okay, well, now this is the consequence because like I'd already reminded you once, or this is the consequence because you've been doing that for however long, and I shouldn't have to continue to remind you that that is now the thing that you do. Um, so it is interesting. I do feel like I'm in like this transition period. And CG and I have actually had this conversation with like LTS specifically. And I think there are certain jobs that you do where like if Christy's a therapist, like there's that fine balance of like you're dealing with, you may have people in your life who have only had dysfunctional relationships, or maybe are going through a season where they need extra support, validly so. And finding that point of like what needs are legitimate, that they need somebody to come in. And as somebody who like just walked through a divorce, like there was some level of needing other people to function for me because of the level of emotional distress I was in. I was not functional. And so I did not expect others to have to. And yet I learned who was safe to be like, hey, I need you to function in this area for a season because I'm losing my stuff. um, so that's the complexity of all of this, is that like in relationships, in healthy relationships, when somebody is emotionally tapped out, they should be able to be like, hey, can you hold a little more weight? But then the scales should go back to a balance once both people can do that. um, and I think that that is actually how most people end up in these like codependent over functioning situations, is that they're in a relationship. If it starts healthy, which doesn't always start healthy, but if it starts healthy, one person will have a wound come up, a trigger, or just like a season of whatever. Life's stuff happens. but like something will happen, that person will need extra support, and then the other person will start over functioning. And again, there's times where like that's some level of needed, but then if that person never like puts their feet back on the ground and starts the thing, that's how you jump into a codependent relationship. um, and it can develop. Like you can have two people who are healthy and one person has like, let's just say somebody gets in a car accident. Okay, well now you're nurse, I'm Nurse Joe taking care of them. Well, once that leg is not broken anymore or whatever thing is, like then they need to start physical therapy, start working on the thing. And I can overfunction a little bit and help them, right? Until they're ready to like put their feet on the ground and do it themselves. But it can become a codependent relationship if they never start to function, like they don't get back on their feet. Um, and that can be really hard as a partner or a friend to know like when to just be like, get off the couch and do the thing. Like I'm done now. Like Nurse Joe is off the clock. I'm going back to just being friends and start doing your own stuff. And in a lot of ways, I feel like a lot of my relationships currently are like, I have put the nurse cap down. Time to wipe your own butt.
What a great way to end that thought. Incredible. Um, so for me, thinking about this question, I think the answer felt really challenging to sit with, and so super fun that we then get to discuss it publicly. Which is, I realized my overfunctioning began because there's some part of me that believed that was the way to be loved. Is like if I just did enough things, then I have like proved my place in the relationship. And so like therefore, like if I do X, Y, and Z, then the other side of the equation should be love. And that was very hard to recognize that that's really where this whole thing started for me, is if I can just handle everything perfectly, then I won't be afraid of like being neglected or abandoned or discarded or, however you want to say that. And that's tough. I mean, that's a really tough thing to like feel like this is all rooted in if I could just like prove myself enough, then and only then am I worthy of love. And that's probably also a whole nother episode that we can have a conversation about. Um, so like in the past, I can see it everywhere in my life. I can see it with family, with friendships, with work, with romantic relationships, like you name it, right? Like it was like my assumption was whatever the thing was that crossed my path was my responsibility. So, like volunteering with different organizations when I didn't have the time or capacity, or it wasn't even like physically well enough to do it. But it's like, well, this is what it looks like to like, be kind and loving and care for other people well. And meanwhile, I'm just like running myself into the ground. And, like Christy and Joe were both saying, like being so disconnected from my body that there was no concept of not being able to handle something. Like the assumption was just, well, I have to. Like there's no other choice. It is that I will handle the thing, whatever the thing is. And I remember feeling really overwhelmed one day and talking to my EMDR therapist back when I was still in EMDR. And she's like, well, you do understand that the times that you get the most upset and overwhelmed is because you have decided to cross your own boundaries. And I was like, oh no, nope. Let's just shove that back in the box and, and not explore that ever again. And so like as I untangled that, that's what I realized, right? That like what it was is me crossing my own boundaries, assuming that that's what had to be done in order to, again, feel that like stability in different relationships. And I mean, what a hard lesson that is, right? Like when you've lived decades a certain way, and then it's like, oh, now I'm like trying to look at basically every interaction that I have all the time. And also trying to hold the space for it is actually the kindest and the most loving thing to say, I respect you as a person and your humanity to the point that I won't do this for you. I will walk alongside you as you do it. And I'm here for whatever pain or struggle or difficulty. Like I can be here as you figure this out. And it is not for me to figure out on your behalf. Because I don't want to feel like I am overstepping in somebody else's life and unintentionally trying to control things that are not mine to control. And what that's looked like now is, as Joe kind of alluded to, realizing that I've had to shift to this posture of like, well, let me know if there's something I can do. Like, you figure out if there is something that I can actually do here. And that doesn't mean I have to do it, right? Like if somebody communicates, I need you to do blah, 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 and I can't, or it's not my place, or I don't have the skill set or expertise or resources, then I can say that. But previously it was kind of again to what like Christy was saying, the automatically jumping in trying to figure out the solution when they haven't even asked for help to begin with. And so taking that step back saying like I'm still here and I still love and care for you and it is not my place to just run at your problem in hopes that I can, make it better on your behalf. Um, and so it's a doozy, this whole thing. It's a real doozy. Um, All right, so going into the next like question, next thought here. Again, like a couple of you kind of alluded to this and how you answered previously, but it is the question of how do you differentiate between doing more for another person because you are like actively choosing like this is the care and help that they need versus doing it for them as a responsive over functioning. Like how do you determine that for yourselves?
Um, well, first of all, I just have to address that you just blew my brain to pieces. Well, because like when I was talking about like there's different parts that are related, like the Venn diagram, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Like that acceptance and that I've got to do the thing in order to be accepted. And then also too, you throw in like culturally. So in my background, we were in a religious environment. And so the thing that I heard all the time, right? Like now they have wife school. Like the thing that I heard all the time was like what my role was. And then another thing that like popped in my little, whatever little peanut that popped is I remember talking with someone years ago and they made the comment, right? It's like this idea that was going around, I don't, at least 10 years ago. And it was like, and so it's going to be from a religious perspective, like to be spent, basically like if I'm going to be spent, I'm going to be spent in the name of Christ. Right. And so, I remember them saying that. And then the idea in that teaching was like, if I have the space and time, then obviously he's calling me to do this at this moment in time and all of these different things. Mind you, just very similar to Joe, like stay at home mom was homeschooling. And then apparently I was involved in a whole bunch of crap, like all these different, I'm like, I look back at that sweet girl and I'm like, God, she was so tired. And no wonder why she was so like, oh, but it felt like energy to me because when you don't experience the health side of it, it felt like an energy. Well, it felt like an energy because I was completely depleted, right? Like if the whole idea is this person asked for help and I got 2 hours today. So I might as well spend all 2 hours doing this and I'll neglect the things that I'm already quote, quote, called to do or care for or whatever at the expense of bearing witness, and I don't know, like I've unraveled a lot of that stuff since then, but that's what blew my mind when you were talking about that, that came to mind. It came to mind just this idea of like, if I do this thing, then I'll be cared for. If I do this thing, I'll be loved. If I do this thing, I'll be valuable to someone. Like my value, worth, and identity is tied to these things that I do for others, as opposed to like who I am as a person. So I just needed to be like, thanks again, CG.
Do you
So
mind if I respond to that real quick? Because you just also triggered something else, which is that energy feeling? Like, Joe talked about like being like super mom, right? Like the sense of like always being like quote energized when really it's like super activated. It's like very anxious, but it's only when there's a baseline of like peace and stability that you can actually that I could recognize, right? I'll speak for myself, that I could recognize what I thought was being energized and like being high capacity was actually just being super activated all of the time and not having any ability to be like, oh, like my anxiety is like 17 out of 10 right now. And I can see that. But previously, like you said, it just felt like, oh, I have all this energy to do all this stuff all the time. And that was never actually the case. But I didn't know that.
oh, I'm 100% activation. Like
Can I
I'm
say
almost,
something?
oh yeah,
Can I
go
ask
ahead.
something real quick? I just wanted to check in with what y'all are saying. I noticed that I would get like a cortisol spike. Like if I got all the things done and could be the superwoman and I got the praise from people, like you're incredible. How do you do it? How do you do it? I don't know anyone that can do all that you do. All of us were doing all the things that all of us were doing. But I would get this rush of like acceptance, love, worthiness, and like I was on top of the world. Like it was a high. And I feel like that has something that like it kept me going, it kept me doing it. I was looking for it.
And
Well,
I
because
think
it's got the reward. Oh, sorry, Sage. It's got the neurologically, it's got the reward, right? Like you're doing the thing, and the feedback is, oh my gosh, I couldn't do this without you. So glad you showed up. Oh my word, who would we have had? I don't know, scrub the toilets today. Like praise, Mary and everybody else. Like, I'm so glad that you showed up and did the thing. Or taking a meal to someone, and it's not like discounting the things, right? It's exactly what CG is saying. It's like when you haven't experienced, I'll say coherence. I want everybody to look up that word. It's a beautiful word. It's called coherence. It's heart, mind, body coherence. It's where like literally you're regulated. We're not going to go through life completely regulated all the time, right? But when we're not in coherence, our heart and our mind are not in coherence, it's jagged. And you can see that in biofeedback. It's fascinating. And so when you haven't experienced, right? Like I come from a trauma background as a kid. When someone, like when I went to the chiropractor one time, he's like, I think you've been in a state of fight or flight your whole entire life. Oh, so no coherence, right? And so then what's the dopamine hit or what's the rush that's going to give me the thing? Oh, it's the I'm doing the thing and I'm getting the praise. And so neurologically that's going to create a feedback loop. I do this and I get acceptance. I do this and I'm wanted. I do this and I have value. I don't do these
Uh,
things and what do I have?
I was
Nothing.
just gonna point I was just gonna point to that, Christy, as the hard part here is as you try to come out of this constant overfunctioning and start to hold boundaries and ask people to like pull their share of the weight, you also have the opposite. Like, so what you get when you overfunction is thank yous, praise, affirmation, all the things. And then when you put up boundaries, people will tell you like, well, don't you love me, or is something wrong? Like they automatically think that now the relationship is like disconnected and we don't care about them. And so, and if you end up with relationships that the boundaries end up dissolving the relationship, well then now you're isolated. And the lie that CG was saying, that you have to work for love, like that feels very real. If people who claimed to love you and really just loved that you did everything for them now stop loving you, you are being like your brain is believing this lie. It's like reinforcing the lie that like, oh, because all my relationships were me over functioning and now I'm trying to not overfunction, now I have no relationships. So I feel like because of the loop, like stopping the loop is really hard because your brain is used to the loop. Like that is how it like feeds itself. It tells you like, yeah, this is what love looks like. Um, and it's like you have to find a new loop where like people actually, and it's not a loop. Need to find those relationships that like, again, the balance of the scales instead of like cycling like this circular. It is a back and forth. It is a I give to you and love to you, you give to me and love to me. um but if all your relationships are the loop pattern, it's really hard, and I could almost say impossible to redefine love unless you actually find people in your life who can connect with you this way, right? The like back and forth that you give to me, I give to you. And in a lot of ways, I think what LTS is trying to do is to teach people like, hey, this is what healthy relationships look like. We love you and also hold you accountable and also expect you to do the thing. And I, in the first question, like I had mentioned, like that CG and I have this conversation around LTS all the time because most women who come into our community live in this loop where like they excuse me, for our retreat, like we have a rule, like we are cleaning up after you. Like you are relaxing. You are here on a retreat, meaning like take up space and you're not needing to work. And then you bring 20 something women who all live in overfunctioning, or at least most of them. Um, and they literally are like so uncomfortable at the idea that they get to sit in their seat and someone else will clean up after they have a meal. Like you can see the level of dysregulation on some of these people because they're like, wait, no, like you don't, that's my stuff. I have to take care of myself. I have to clean up after myself. And then I also have to help. Do you need me to set that up for you? Do you want me to, can I help with, like they literally don't know how to just like sit and be. And like I know what that feels like in my body. Like I also on my first retreat was like, ugh. And I joke with women now. I'm like, yeah, well, why do you think I started? Why do you think I started leading? So I could actually have an excuse to also clean up. Now I get to clean up because I work here and you guys have to deal with the uncomfort of actually sitting still. I don't. But I just wanted to point out the fact that like as you fix that, like that dopamine, that like cycle that your brain is used to, if you don't have something that counteracts it, and again, I think that's why it is so important to get into a community that's healthy. If you don't have relationships that actually like feed you in a health, in a like partnership, um, then fixing it can feel super isolating, depressing, and if you don't have another option, like you will likely revert back to those patterns because that is all that you have. Um, so I just wanted to point out the like validity of how hard it is to go from overfunctioning, especially if you do at work and in relationships and in your friendships and in your community and it's really hard to then find like health and pull into a like having boundaries, having real expectations of what love is, redefining like how people show up for you. So rant over.
What a great
Yeah.
rant, though.
And also
Uh,
brilliant.
yes.
Yeah.
But what came to mind, Brittany, when you brought up that point of the loop to begin with, was the concept of over functioning. It goes hand in hand, generally speaking, with like being in survival mode. So it's not just that there's this like praise dopamine, but also like I can think of different times in my life where that was the only place that I was being acknowledged and recognized. Like it was the only spot where I felt like I was getting, now I can describe it as like getting that like dopamine response. But when you're so deep in survival mode, and there's nothing that feels like it eases the burden, and there's only this one thing that you feel like makes life feel a little bit more manageable and a little bit easier, then of course like how could you possibly give that up? right? Like it's like the thing that feels like maybe it's not so bad after all. Like maybe this person actually does see me. Maybe this person actually does care. And that's a hard thing to be able to create enough space in one's own life to then be able to say, I can incorporate things that are like good and happy and healthy so that I also, so it's not like only the relational piece. It's like, how do we have that positive feedback loop in general in our lives? It's a lot.
When I was going to say, it's, one of the things that Joe had said, I mean, 100% you can experience low mood out of that and feel very lonely, um, and experience that, that isolation. And sorry, my little Alexa went off and said, go get my kid. Would you like to provide that now? No, Alexa, go to bed. Sorry, guys. So anyways, but so absolutely. So see, like I have reminders all day long that go off. But on that also too, in that isolation, in that, what I would say, like I've experienced that low mood of like all of a sudden saying no and then feeling like I did something wrong because I didn't, like, oh, I really should have, and then like shaming myself and feeling bad, being really hypercritical, whatever, like you could have totally done that, whatever. Um, and what I would just encourage is to continue the practice of it by saying the thing out loud. So the thing that I will actually say to trusted people that I love and care about, because this will kind of flow into our next question, like what's it look like for me to address it? I will actually say the thing out loud. I feel like I'm starting to overfunction for you. Like I'm going to step back because I want to know what, is there something that you need from me? Or is there something that I could consider doing for you? Is there something that would be helpful, whatever. And so I'll say the quiet part out loud. If I find myself thinking, and this is like with trusted, individuals, but if I find myself thinking it, I'll actually say it. Hey, I'm going to say something really awkward and I'll preference it. I'm going to say something really awkward right now. But my family's used to it. I'm going to say something awkward, but like, here's what I'm noticing. And I feel like I'm going to like take the reins because I don't like to see you struggle with this. Nobody wants to sit and watch someone struggle. However, if I take the reins, I'm not actually helping you. And then I'm pissing myself off because I don't have the space and time. And my other caveat, and then I'll shut my mouth, is like, we have a whole generation. So I'm a Gen Xer. We have a whole generation of women who are like, they don't have the window of tolerance for it anymore because we have been over functioning. And I would say not just my generation, but like we have been over functioning. And so like now in different like perimenopause, menopause, like spaces, we're being given permission to not. And it may look positive or negative, I don't know, but it's kind of like we're coming in with this newer language of like, yeah, that's why in your 40s you're losing your mind, is because like you're freaking burned out because you've been doing the thing for so long, and so you don't have space and capacity for it. And yet sometimes you find space and capacity for it. But anyways, so yeah, that was my little caveat. Is I think we're going to continue to see degrees of more of it, especially as we feel empowered as women to be able to say, hey, actually, this isn't my lane. And I need to let you drive in the lane and me not while I'm in the passenger seat and take over the wheel and be the like student driver person who has like my own steering wheel. Okay, there we go.
So trying to differentiate between doing more for somebody else because I choose to versus doing it because it's just me over functioning. Um, I have learned to pause. I try to pause. But like really pause and ask myself, okay, do I have the time and space for whatever the thing is? And If I'm being honest, sometimes my husband will ask me that if I didn't take the pause. He's like, "Do you have the time and space for that?" Um, and then it's me deciding, am I going to honor this answer? Am I going to honor like, no, I don't have the capacity for it. And sometimes I do honor it and sometimes I don't. I also check in to see if there's joy around it. Like if doing it, does it bring any joy for me around the experience? Or is it just about the other person? And then if I think about doing it instead of joy, do I feel like I'm suffocating? Um, if I could take a nap in that moment, then I probably don't have much left to give. Like if I'm like, I could close my eyes and just go to sleep, then I probably should say no. Um, and then the last piece of it that I like a tool I use to check in is, okay, how many spoons do I have? We have spoon drawers, my husband and I, and we'll check in with each other throughout the day. How many spoons do you have? And if one of us has more spoons than the other, then we tend to take on a little bit more for the rest of the day, with work and kids and life. And then if the other person doesn't, we try and give them space to kind of refill and reset. Um, oh, and one other last component, when I'm trying to decide if it's for them or me, I think to myself, if I say no, will this person still love me? And then if I mean, usually the answer is always yes. But it kind of gives me permission, like, okay, they'll still love me if I say no. Like, it's okay for me to say no and honor my like capacity in this moment.
I love that that was your last note because that was where my brain went. Is the am I working kind of what just CG was saying? Am I working for their love? Like, am I doing this? Am I functioning in this way so that they love me? Or do they love me and therefore I want to do this thing for them? Um, and that sounds like that sounds really great. And that sh- is the framework that I hope to live in. Um, but I think currently a lot of my relationships, it is the, and for, yeah, it is the, if I don't do this, they will react. And so I love Brittany that you said like, yeah, they love me. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I feel that way. I mean, at work, it has been interesting to learn that I can like text CG and be like, I need to tap out, or like learn that I have limits. I'm allowed to have limits as a human being. Limits will come up. And also I love Brittany, the like the spoons, the concept of like checking in regularly. I think that I struggle with that. I tend to be the like, well, this is what I usually have capacity for, and in my brain it's usually like the higher level of functioning that that I can attain to. And I struggle to be like, okay, well, now I'm not feeling well, or now I just traveled, or this one emotional thing came up and I'm dysregulated, and like how life will limit your capacity. um and so that need to like stop and check in to like, okay, when I mapped out my week or when I mapped out my month, I had this level of capacity and I was expecting to do all these things. But now that X, Y, and Z happened, I actually probably need to limit my to-do list, or my like, oh, I offered to do this with this person and now I actually don't have the time to do that. So do I call them and tell them like, hey, I actually can't meet for coffee? um, that is something I still really, really struggle with. But I'm also in certain relationships, I still have the level of like, if I make plans and cancel, I will have backlash. Like, it's not the like, they love me and it'll be fine. It is the, how badly will they react? And do I want to deal with their reaction, or do I want to just like make space for the thing I already said I would do? Um, and as somebody who's like in the process of dealing with recalibrating relationships, um, that is very telling of like what relationships are healthy and what relationships are loving versus what relationships are expectation and fragments from a past version of me who was earning everyone's love. Um, and realizing that like certain things will reinforce old patterns, and doing the hard work is like stopping those patterns so that you can have new patterns. And is this a I'm holding their hand and letting them learn with me and like slowly putting more weight in their basket? Or is this a like, hey bud, you don't get a basket anymore? Um and like it can be really hard to know um when to which one to do. Um and this is something that in our workshop we've like talked about before, is the like a lot of times when people come, it's so much easier to just like to ask somebody else, like, hey, is this relationship worth me slowly handing them their own eggs back? Or do I just need to like take the basket and run? And people will like look at me or CG or their leader, or you see this in like other aspects, like a pastor or a counselor or a therapist, and they were like, tell me how to deal with this, because making those choices on your own is really hard and complicated because it's not black and white. It is so, so gray. Um, and all the different facets of that relationship, like a third party doesn't know. Like that is on you to figure out. And also, you're the one dealing with the consequences of removing the basket or slowly continuing to deal with the balancing of the weights here. um, and so this is something I feel like I'm very much in the middle of, especially as like my kids are growing up and some of them need to start carrying more weight. And then I see, you know, in a divorce, like you can see like, oh, well, that person is now putting more weight on them than they should, or I believe that they should, because like we all have our own perspectives. And then I'm like, well, now I want to carry more of that kid's weight because I see that this, you know, like there's so complex, so much complexity to it. Um, so for me, I'm in a place of do I know that they love me if I do this or not? Um, and then also learning the like, is it worth me doing the thing so that I don't have to deal with the consequence of me not doing the thing? And just sitting in the like, that lets me know that there's still a lot more work to be done. um, but yeah, I like what Brittany said about like the learning to take like recalibrate, like what am I actually able to do now, because I think that that's something I struggle to do. I really struggle to adapt. So once I like map out like this is what I'll do for the month or this is what I'll do for the week, you know, sometimes you get hit with a cold and like you got to rethink those things because you're not capable anymore.
Or even in just the one day or hour.
I'm still at a place where, because I'll tell people all the time, like, set a timer and check in with yourself 2 to 3 times a day. I still check in with myself 4 times a day, when I wake up, at lunchtime, when I leave the office, and when I get home. Or wait, yeah, when I leave the office and then before I go to bed. And all I'm doing is box breathing. Like, I'm not doing anything fabtabulous, but I'm just checking in with myself, just to kind of see, so that I have an awareness. And for me, it has to be like, I do have to do it that often. Um, for someone else, it might not be like that, but I'll forget. I will ignore. Well, I don't think I would do it anymore. I would ignore, though, like, how dysregulated I was in order to do in another space. And now I try to be super mindful of, like, how do I feel? What's coming? Hey, Christy, what's going on today? And I will literally do a little like verbal check in with myself. Reflect on the morning. Oh, girl, you killed it, or whatever. Look at you breathing. I mean, it's just, it's me and my little person. We're very funny, but and so just kind of like trying to map out and check in with yourself, however many spoons or whatever, like just kind of trying to assess so that you can start to notice, okay, is there some type of, like, am I being hypervigilant or dysregulated the whole time, but it feels like, or activated, right? Like all the different words that we kind of know. But it's actually not what it is. I mean, that was one of the biggest things is like sometimes when you get to teach it all the time, you start to notice it and then you're like, oh, well, that's fun. Anyways.
That is fun. Nothing like professionally learning how to see yourself. Like that is a very surprising outcome of having started Louder Than Silence is the like, oh, I understand myself exponentially better than I did before, and I did not know that that was going to be a thing. So here we are. And alas, we are also at the end of our time for today. So thank you for listening to the Louder Than Silence podcast. If you'd like more info about our organization, you can visit us at louderthansilence.org or follow us on Instagram at louderthansilence.org. This podcast and all of our programs are offered at no cost to participants, so please consider donating today to support our work. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast for the most current episodes, and we will see you next month.